Hello, and welcome to the Southcoast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of In Focus Podcasts, brought to you by theartistindex.com, and our guest is with us today. I'll give you a hint. She's another Swaney. Yeah, the place is loaded with them. And as I do with everybody, I always ask them to say who they are and to spell their name for the historic record. And sometimes there's a little bit of fun with the name. I'll explain to you later.
Okay. Wanda Medina. Wanda, middle initial C, last name Medina.
Okay. Do people ever mispronounce your name at all? Or misspell it?
They might say Medina once in a while.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because it's bizarre how, like Helen Granger was Helen Granger sometimes. The last gentleman who left is Kevin Jose, which everybody thinks Jose is Jose. But if you stop and think about it, especially after he told me, he's Haitian. So it's actually Kevin Jose. So in Portuguese it's José, in Spanish it's Jose, and in French it's Jose, as in the Haitian dialect. So it's always an important thing. You had no fun. There was nothing funny about your name or people calling you except Medina.
That's true.
Yeah. So tell me about Swain, because there's a thread that is running through a lot of these podcasts with the Swain people, or the Swanies. And tell us all about it, how you got involved, going back to your childhood, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
My mother was an artist, and she went to Swain in the 40s. She always had me with her when she was doing her work. She'd set me up to draw or paint with her as soon as I could hold on to a brush or a pencil, which was very young. I was about 9-10 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And she did all her work at home. She had a studio in the house.
What was her name?
Alice
Silva
Medina.
Alice Silva Medina. Okay.
Yes. So I just followed her lead.
Mm-hmm.
She encouraged me to do what I could do, and she instilled a love of art in me. Took me to museums and galleries. And
Now, a woman in a small town in the 40s going to art school, there must have been some challenges there.
She never spoke of that.
Really?
No.
That's excellent.
I'm sure there were other women too, not many, but there were.
Well, the school did start off as a finishing school for girls, so I guess that wouldn't be highly unusual. But then again, the fact that she was able to go to an art school is a fantastic thing to begin with.
Yeah.
And so now she inoculated you with brush and pencil. And throughout your childhood, you continued to follow the whatever that is. We all describe it differently.
Yeah, I did. I continued on being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And she would also paint murals in the house.
Really?
Or change the furniture and the design of the house. Because when she was at Swain, she studied interior design as well as painting. So she was always doing different projects in the house, and she would let me paint on the walls too. Even if I wasn't painting in her space, it was okay for me to find a place that I could do that.
Wow. That's, what did your friends think about that?
I don't know. They knew my mother. So
Really? Could you say she was a character, or?
Not a character, but she was definitely an individual. she was a special person.
Well, you know that photograph that is now about 10 years old that Don Wilkinson, another Swain graduate, has been putting back into memory on Facebook, the Irascibles, which is a pastiche of the original Irascibles of all the Expressionist painters. Would she have fit into that group?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's good. How was your experience there at the Swain School?
Swain was great. I came when my second year in undergrad. First year I went to a school that I made a mistake going to another school.
Mm-hmm.
So I came as a sophomore, and I was just really, it felt like home. It felt like where I should have been the full time. Yeah. With all the teachers were amazing and very dedicated to our work as well as their own. And everybody all the students were so engrossed in their work that it was wonderful to be in a school that was so focused.
Well, this is a wonderful opportunity for the listeners, especially those who are interested in Swain as an institution, as a subject. You're the first woman Swain graduate that we've had, and we've heard the guys go on about certain things. It seems as though you, and I'm not going to include you in it because I don't know yet, it seems as though the Swain graduates still have this huge hole in their heart or their emotion of the transition of the school from what it was to SMU and then all of a sudden over to UMass Dartmouth. And I'm really kind of interested in that because any institution or any group of instructors that could put that kind of, I don't know, mark on your soul is of interest because I'm a BFA, SMU 75. The four instructors that we had, Tornieri, Cummings, Elliott, and McCoy, we have difficulty speaking about them without getting welled up. So I'm interested in your story as well. I mean, not too many college kids, can get all welled up about, maybe really raunchy parties or whatever like that, maybe. But
We didn't even have those.
It was a party every day, basically.
It was a party, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Not that kind of thing.
Not
yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because everybody was so close to each other that
Yeah.
we were very protective of each other.
Family.
Yeah, definitely family.
Wow.
We never had, I don't recall any fights.
Pettiness.
Or no pettiness. If somebody, we would protect each other and take care of each other. If there was I don't even remember a situation happening where somebody needed help, but we would all help someone. We wouldn't let them leave a party if they weren't able to make it home safely. And
Yeah. And again, from a woman's perspective, because you're the first one that I've had the opportunity to speak with. And how many other women were there, by the way, beside yourself?
Oh, I don't remember. There were a lot of women there.
There were a lot of women there? Okay. Basically, all we hear from is mostly the guys that are in town. And that's part and parcel of this, part of the project is to get everybody out of the woodwork and get into, as we say, bookmarking their page in history, because we've all made history as creatives based on where we went to school, who our instructors were, who we hung out with. I was using the term DNA, but people now know what DNA really is, so it's not a good term. It's probably some sort of genealogy. It's some sort of connections that we all have with each other and to each other. Tornieri was a former Swain instructor. I don't think Cummings was, although somebody said he may have been. Herb Cummings, Alma's dad.
Okay.
And just with the Tornieri aspect of going back to Hans Hoffman, who was his instructor.
And David Smith.
And David Loeffler Smith, exactly. So there's this interesting family traits, maybe, that comes from the institutions that we attended.
I think so.
What was the best thing about being at Swain?
I was able to work as much as I wanted to.
Now, what was your genre?
Printmaking.
Printmaking.
So we had studios that we could work in,
Mm-hmm.
and you could be there all night, which I often was, and it was okay. You know, there was never, we had keys and we were in and out.
Oh, that's great. Did you move on to another institution, like for your master's, or?
I went to grad school. I took a year off after Swain, and I went to Cranbrook.
Mm-hmm.
David Smith told me that that would have been a perfect place for me to go.
That was the place.
That was the place.
Yeah.
I was accepted at a few other schools, but I chose Cranbrook because it was everything David said it would be.
Yeah. In what way?
It was very focused, just like Swain was, where we tended to work from 7 in the morning till 2 or 3 in the morning. Take breaks for food, but
Sure.
we were really pretty much always in the studio.
You know, it's funny. I would watch episodes of MASH. I didn't go into the military. Luckily for me, my draft number was 49, but through some quirk of fate, they said that I had third-degree flat feet. And my doctor said, "You don't have third-degree flat feet, but shh." You know, but every time I would watch MASH, I felt as though I were in some sort of a military thing, because the camaraderie in undergraduate and graduate was just absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said, we were burning the midnight oil. Sometimes we would eat together. We'd scrounge around what we could to put together a meal. I produced more work in 2 years of graduate school than I think I did my entire life so far. And the freedom was actually scary. Did you have that kind of freedom at Cranbrook?
Yeah. We had to be in the studio at a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
in our department.
Right.
But everybody was in the studio early and working late, and the instructors, they were doing their thing, and they had studios also, so they were able to work. Some of the teachers lived on campus, so they were really close to their studios. And we were able to go to critiques in other departments, so that was a good experience to
Mm-hmm.
see what the other departments were doing and what they were about.
Who were some of your instructors?
Oh, now this is where I lose names. Connor Evers from California.
What was he? Was he also a printmaker?
He was a painter, actually.
Oh, he was a painter, okay.
He was a painter whose work in L.A. got censored. The show got closed down because of nudity in the 60s. I think it was one of the first shows that was closed because of whatever. Someone didn't like the subject matter.
Yeah, that's a battle artists have been fighting for centuries.
Yeah, so he was the head of our department. Oh gosh, I am going blank now. If I could look it up.
Get the old catalog out. Who was your greatest influence then between Swain and Cranbrook? Let's put it that way.
What do you mean between?
I had a greater influence with the four instructors, Tonieri, Cummings, McCoy, and Elliott at SMU, and I can't honestly say that I had any influence from any of the instructors that I had in grad school, because it was kind of bizarre. It was so free that they just kind of showed up. There was Jerry Winter, who he was the incoming chair. There was Andrew Jackson, who was the outgoing chair. He was the one that saw my work and suggested to a friend of mine who was a Cuban refugee. He was a class ahead of me at SMU, to have me apply. And they were very supportive and everything, but it was none of the interaction that I had with Herb Cummings or Frank McCoy or Ed Tonieri or Bill Elliott. It was scary. It was scary.
Gee. No, I had the exact opposite experience, because like I said, a lot of the instructors lived on campus. We had a dining hall
Mm-hmm.
in another room, in another building, where the boys' school, it's Cranbrook Boys' School, because we used to eat in their basement of one of their buildings.
Uh-huh.
So, and there was nothing around. It's like 350 acres of the campus. So we really stuck around there.
Okay. All right.
And we also had a little tavern on campus. So the teachers and students would socialize there.
Yeah, those things are, people don't understand the sociability of taverns and bars and cafes. We had the rat cellar, as we referred to the Rathskeller. And that was at a time where, things were changing. It was Vietnam, and people figured, okay, if you can go fight, then you can drink. So they lowered the drinking age. They lowered the voting age, and it was. Now, what years are we talking about, if you don't mind me asking?
I graduated from Swain in '79 and Cranbrook '82.
Okay, so
High school '74.
yeah. So you still, the after effects of all of that was still going on.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
the world is. We thought it was crazy then. I think it's even crazier now. You just never know what's going to crawl out from under a rock today.
That's so true.
And I think the worst part of it is the barrage of media, where we had just basically 3 channels, and that was it. And now it's like, oh my God, it's like standing in the middle of an airport, in the crossroads of all the landing strips. You just don't know what's going to come up or down on you next. How would you describe your work then to now? I mean, in what are you an abstractionist? Are you
I'm an abstractionist.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the technique, intaglio.
I use mixed media.
Mixed media.
Instead of canvas, I paint on burlap,
Mm-hmm.
and then just come up with images using the mixed media.
Mhm.
So I'll have paint and paper, packing material, other things on my pieces.
Now, how did that evolve to that point?
The abstraction's always been there.
Even when you're printmaking.
Even when I was printmaking. It started to change, actually.
So now
during
you're more
printmaking.
painter than printmaker.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not-
All right. I
gave
want to
up
clarify that.
printmaking.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Printmaking's great, but I guess it's the second curse. Sculptors, they can only make maquettes because where are you going to keep all that stone and these big pieces, and you need forklifts and warehouses and such. Printmakers, you need a press, damn it. And those things
And
are
the
expensive and
chemicals are
heavy.
really bad for you.
Yeah, those are back in the days where we'd have open acid baths and bins of wood shavings with kerosene, which could have gone off at any moment.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
But here we are, right? And no helmets on bicycles either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think I became more free with my work, and the abstractions just created their own life. The piece talks to me
Mm-hmm.
and other, contributors, but I don't think I can. My work can't be like pigeonholed. Oh, that's what this is. That's why I call it mixed media.
Okay. I mean,
And I like people to get something from the work. I'm not trying to dictate what they're looking at.
mhm.
So whatever their experience is, they can bring it to the work and feel connected with it.
People always need some sort of point of reference from something that they know of. So do you have people say, oh, Antonio Taipis or Alberto Buri or any of those kinds of things come up?
No,
That's good.
not to my face.
Yeah, no, that's good because it's tough when you get pigeonholed like, oh, that's just like, in my case, Cy Twombly. Oh my God, and then that's stuck in your head. What is the your audience's reaction to your work, the viewers' reaction to your work?
Usually very positive.
What
They always want to touch it too.
They always want to touch it.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting, because it doesn't really matter what we want to say. It matters what they're hearing or seeing. That's more important. Do you title your works, by the way?
I just started to.
Okay. Oh, so you didn't before?
Mm-mm.
What were they? Were the titles untitled? 1 untitled, 2 untitled, 3.
Yeah,
Is that how it went? Really?
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can
come up with
understand that.
titles.
Yeah, I can understand that, because currently everything starts off with 45. That's the number of the house, because that's where I am. But if I had to get ready for a show in Providence, it'd probably be POV and then a number, because it's crazy. I mean, winter sunset. People say, I don't see a winter sunset.
I might use that.
Yeah. It does get crazy. I'm going to ask you the question that makes a lot of us crazy.
Uh-oh.
So, I'm trying to keep a straight face. Don't look at me. So, what are you trying to say with your art?
Oh, I knew it. I knew that was coming. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that I really enjoy what I'm doing, and that it's all about exploration. Nothing is, but every part of the piece is important.
Mm-hmm.
Every little thing that's on it is important. It's not just random. I want people to know that I really think deeply about my work. Just because it's abstracted doesn't mean that doesn't come from your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh yeah, I'm playing, isn't that pretty? Or it's really, it's a part of me, and I want to share it with people. And then they can, like I said before, they can put their own spin on it, like their experience.
Okay.
People say, oh, that looks like this. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and again, they need something concrete to stabilize them so that they can feel an association or a connection
Mm-hmm.
to the work. Do you do preparatory drawings before you work, or
No, I just start.
you just start?
I might
Yeah.
have an idea. I'll have an idea in my head, but that always changes through the process. But
Is it like the foggy mirror thing where you know the image is there and you're wiping the fog off the mirror, the perspiration?
Yeah, it's there. It's screaming at me sometimes, but
It's screaming at you.
But I have to get through the layers
Mm-hmm.
of my own mind and what I think I see to get to what I really want to show.
Okay. Are you slow and methodical?
Oh, I'm not methodical. Slower than I used to be.
Why is that?
I might be. I'm probably more mindful of what I'm doing.
Would you say you're a composer?
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. Yeah.
So you're not making statements of life and death and war and strife and impeachments and...
Not
Oops.
now. I did do
Yeah.
that.
You did do that.
Yeah.
And why did you get away from it?
I'm just a different person now.
Okay.
I did a lot of protest kind of stuff,
You did?
Yeah, but now life's different
And if...
for me.
Okay, and why is life different?
I'm happier
Okay.
and much more positive than I used to be. So...
What brought that about? I mean, Juan, I'm going to tell you, this is pretty much the first of all the interviews that we've done. Probably one of the most textbook interviews back and forth. Where a lot of the artists are just just it's like the stone at the top of the hill, just let it roll and it goes, and it's great for me because I can just sit back. But I don't feel like I'm trying to pull teeth or anything with you, and I don't know you that well, so I'm trying to tiptoe around certain things. But this is good. So the differences, the change in the work.
Maybe I grew up a little bit. My experience with the world is different. I think, I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I know that has a great deal of contribution to how I see things and how I act.
How did you get into Buddhism?
I saw a picture of a nun, a Buddhist nun, in the Standard Times, and saying that she was teaching meditation classes at the Unitarian Church in Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Fairhaven. So I saw her face, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to look like her.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I know I'm influenced by Taoism. Herb Cummings, Alma's dad, had a horrible experience during World War II. He was a Quaker, and therefore he was... Quakers were the only valid conscientious objectors during World War II. And they made him a corpsman, a medic, and his unit ended up cleaning out at least two of the death camps. Mm. And you're an impressionable young person. You're like in 18, 19, 20, and you're listening to this man telling you these stories, and you're trying to have a conversation. You said, what was the worst thing that happened to you during this experience? And he looked at me, and I know a couple of other people like, I can't believe he actually said that, And Herb looked at me and he said, the worst thing that happened to me is 9 days after we entered the camp, and I realized I hadn't vomited. And that repulsed me.
Oh, gosh.
That I could continue seeing that, and it wasn't getting under my skin like it did on the first minute of the first hour of the first day. And he... was very, I always call him the only Zen Quaker that I've ever known. I remember one lecture he did with the Six Persimmons by the Buddhist monk Mukhi. And I remember at that time, oh my God, if he keeps going on any more about this, my head's going to explode. But at the same time, I was saying, oh my God, this one painting I could stare at for the rest of my life, because I keep seeing these relationships, and he's absolutely correct. And that's why my head was going to explode, not because he was droning, but because everything he was saying, I was seeing, and it was incredible. And I don't know if I bring that to my work, although at an opening in Chicago, there just happened to be a lot of young Asian women there, because the gallery is very close to the old Koreatown. And I try to tell them I paint cold-blooded, sang-froid, no emotions, all compositions, and they nearly attacked me in a nice way. No, and they started pulling stuff out of my head that was, how did you possibly... They felt the Zenness, they felt the Taoism, they felt all of this Eastern stuff in my work, which was kind of interesting because I try to just shut my mind off to everything, So... has any of that crept into your work?
I don't.
That you are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. I mean, it has to have, but it's not what's...
Has it affected you? Not just as a person, but as an artist as well?
I imagine so, but nothing's... Because my outlook is different.
Okay.
Yeah, and I enjoy my work now. I think a lot of it before was cathartic.
Yeah.
Trying to get stuff out and make a statement, and now it just kind of flows. Not that, sometimes I have to put pieces down and not go back to them until I'm ready.
Yeah, it's when they call you, you go back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny because when you were trying to say cathartic, all I could think of was at that moment was Catholic, because if you're not feeling guilty and overwhelmed, and if you're feeling too happy, then you can get that on campus too, right? Which is it's a funny thing. A friend of mine was Jewish. He says it's so weird between the two religions. They come from the same stem, from the same trunk, and the Catholics feel that if they're not suffering enough, they're not honoring God enough, and the Jews are pretty much like, why be uncomfortable? You know what I mean? So it's that kind of a thing.
I was raised Catholic.
Yeah. Believe me, I was an altar boy and all that other stuff too. And speaking of which, maturing, changing your spiritual needle on your compass. Where do you see yourself up the road in a few years?
Showing at the Whitney.
That's still a dream?
Somebody told, one of my instructors at Cranbrook told me that would happen. And I still have that wish.
Are you putting it out there
No.
to the universe?
Well, to the universe, yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that things happen when they're supposed to happen and not before then?
I think things happen as circumstances and our actions create them.
Do you believe in serendipity?
Not really.
Okay. Do you believe in coincidences?
No.
Okay. There are no
There
coincidences.
are no coincidences.
Yeah. Hanging at the Whitney, what would that do for you? How would that make you feel?
It would make me feel that I had accomplished something.
Oh, I hate to use the V word. Would you feel validated?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, don't use
Yeah.
No, it just would be a wonderful thing.
I mean, it's like climbing mountains, isn't it? I mean, if you like climbing mountains, I mean, to climb Kilimanjaro, to climb the Matterhorn, these are like achievements. These are nothing more than just I don't want to say a notch in our belts, but it's we've gone as far as we possibly could with the talents and the drive that we were lucky to possess at birth, or that was instilled in us. What's going on now in your life as far as art and your work?
I don't have any shows coming up. I just had a show this summer.
You were in the Whaling Museum,
Cape Verdean Voices show.
Yeah, and are you going to be going to Cabo Verde, to Cape Verde?
I hope so.
Okay. Have you ever been?
No, I have never.
The air rates. I sound like a commercial. The air rates right now are the lowest they've ever been. They've got a daily out of Boston now.
Yeah,
I think round trip. Yeah.
I just found that out.
Yeah.
But, there was during the show, the American ambassador to Cape Verde, saw the images, and saw the work from the museum show, and he picked some people's work to go to Cape Verde, to be in his residence in Praia, which is the capital of Cape Verde. And I was fortunate enough to be picked as one of those artists. So one of my paintings is on its way or there.
Where's your family? Which island are you from? Fogo?
My
São
father's family was from Fogo. My mother's from Brava.
From Brava, yeah. It's now starting to be like the resort place of Africa, which is kind of interesting. Since that show was specifically about your Cape Verdeanness, did any of that get channeled into the work? Yeah?
Yeah.
You were listening to Geechee music and the whole,
No, I could hear people talking.
Yeah.
I hate to say that.
The group that I hear in my head a lot that I miss is Tropical Power. Do you remember them? They used to come in the parades.
Power.
They were the best thing about the parades, and they were in a lot of the Cape Verdean Independence parades too. Tropical Power. They're mostly percussion, but wow.
I probably heard some.
Yeah, it was funny. You'd see them coming down the street, and you could see people as they're hitting them as like a wave, and then as they're going on, the people they would just settle down. It was kind of cool. It was like a ripple effect, you know. You've never been there, huh? You still have family there?
No. My family came here. My grandfather came over in like the 1800s, and
Was he part of the whaling
yes,
Cape
he was
Verdeans?
stowed away on a whaling ship.
Okay.
But yeah, we talk about going.
I mean, you have a lot of what's I don't know what to use the word. It's not baggage. It's facets. Being a Cape Verdean woman or a woman of Cape Verdean descent.
Second generation American.
Second generation American. A woman of color. Although Cape Verdeans, I had a student's mother who was finding her roots, came down here from Boston. Her child was doing excellently, and then she came up to me after her class and said, I was working for Bobby Forts at the time, and she said, we're going back to Boston. And I said, why? She said, I can't stand the Cape Verdeans. I said, you're an African woman, African-American woman. Yeah, exactly. They're too uppity. And I said, what? She said, yeah, they're just like very snobby. And I spoke to somebody else about that, and they said, well, it's because they know where they come from.
We sort of know.
They can point to an island. They can point to, a food. They can point to a music. They can point to something. And you have a lot of these other people who were just stolen.
Well, we were stolen too.
Yeah.
So there's more in common there than...
Exactly,
than
but
anything.
unfortunately some people don't look for commonality, they look for the differences in between,
I think Cape Verdean people are friendly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes. What?
Well, there's a whole thing, which, and I don't want to go there because I don't know you well enough, but I'm in a, I hate the term, interracial marriage, so I'm learning every day, every single day. And I'm wondering if any of that stuff has affected my work. I don't know. People ask, why are you an abstractionist? And I tell them, well, because I used to do things about downtrodden people who were diminished, and so on and so forth. And it got to be too much of a weight to carry because, I wasn't making myself feel better. I wasn't feeling better by doing this sort of thing. I did an Indian series that nearly made me want to jump off a bridge. And so I just started doing abstraction because I thought, who's it going to hurt? Maybe somebody's eyeballs or something like that, but it's not going to hurt any other part, And if they see something in there that bothers them, then they can just walk away. But this, I don't think they'll get a panel of 12 people to say, I see the same thing, So, but it all of these things, our lives as artists are somehow ooze their way into our work. And now with this piece that you did specifically for Cape Verdean culture, and now that you've got this opportunity to go to Cape Verde or Cabo Verde, Verdi, depending on the dialect, how is that going to change you if it hasn't already?
It already has. The whole show changed me.
Did it?
I had 2 pieces in there.
You talked about voices, was it before?
Yeah,
All right.
while I was painting, I was hearing stuff. I heard voices that my husband said were the ancestors talking to me. Didn't you?
Oh, by the way, do you mind? Wanda's husband Jeff is in the house, but he's being quiet and supportive, or quietly supportive as well. Yeah.
And I think because I was really focused on trying to represent something with these paintings. I mean, they were really abstracted.
Mm-hmm.
But, I chose certain colors to depict certain, actually chose colors to pick water, to depict water, and packing material that became mountains. And yeah, and after I finished the painting I did of Brava, I actually saw a photograph of Brava depicting the exact place that I had done.
Wow.
So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, almost to the T. And
That's.
somebody was helping me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe in that. I remember Walt Disney where they had the Tiki Hut, and you can take that for what it's worth. But the first words in the track for the Tiki Hut is spirits, and that's what starts off the whole thing. I remember going there when my daughter was very, very small, and I was like, "Oh my God, everything's moving in here! It's everything is moving. Like if I sit in the seats, I mean, they're going to stop moving too. It was kind of crazy." Wanda, unfortunately, I feel like we're just getting warmed up, and we're now at a time where we're going to start winding down. So I'm going to ask you the question I ask many of the artists: how do you want to be remembered? Because that's really what this whole project is about. It's about history. It's putting you in your place in history. It's about bookmarking your page in history. And our goal is to index everybody, either through a podcast or when we finally get our membership application going where you can put your information up there, all the way back to all the way back as far as we can possibly go, even to the dead, believe it or not, to resurrect. People go in their drawers and pull out stuff that their parents or their aunts and uncles did, or music or whatever, and put it there, because this is a big pyramid, and pyramids were made to keep memories alive, because as long as the memory's alive, we are alive. So how would you want to be remembered?
As a kind person.
How as an artist?
How as an artist? That my work comes from my heart, and I want people to feel invited by it, to get involved with the image.
Okay.
So it belongs to everybody who looks at it, and it's about everybody who looks at it.
Okay. And one more question, because I have to.
Okay.
Now that you've had this change because of this show, is that a path that you're going to stay on now?
I'm trying to pinpoint what that is, because I still feel there's a lot of influence and things from the show, and I have to brush aside a lot of it so I can figure out what the exact purpose is.
Yeah, my symbol is, it sounds crazy, but Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies. I must have seen it 15 times, 7 of which were all back to back. And people think it's really funny, but it's so incredibly zen. It's weird, and it's the feather. And that feather, it's about destiny and fate. It's kind of interesting. The other thing too is, for me, when I see a feather, happenstance on the street or whatever, a white feather, I know what I've been looking for, what I've been asking for, is going to happen. Not exactly the way I planned it, not instantly, but it's coming. It's like it's going to be, everything is going to be all right,
Yeah.
So do you have those kind of moments?
Where I think everything's going to be all right.
Where you have a symbol, a sign, or something.
I don't know. A sign.
Yeah. Do you think probably with this new direction that it's going to open up a whole nother world to you?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm still like tippy-toeing up to it. I'm not ready to knock on the door yet.
Yeah, I'd be very, very quiet. Wanda Medina, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
This has been good, and I hope we can do another one, because I tell everybody this is not a one and done deal, because I learn so much about people, and sometimes they come in here thinking they're going to talk about art and artists, and then they end up doing that, but they also mix in other interests and other experiences and so on and so forth. and I'd welcome you back to speak about, especially when you get back from Cape Verde, because I really want to listen to what you have to say. It is a weird thing, the places that we come from, that I think it's imprinted in us somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have 3 years to get there. So
3 years to get there.
The work's going to be.
Are they gonna pay for you, or you have to raise your money?
They took care of everything.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Packing, shipping.
Wow, excellent. All right, well, thank you very much. This is
you.
Ron Fortier with Wanda Medina, and this wraps up another episode of In Focus Podcast, brought to you by theartistindex.com. Thank you very much. See you next time.